Hi, welcome back to the Headbangers podcast. I'm joined with Nathan here today, Matt, vocalist of Crpytopsy, host of Vox&Hops podcast, and craft beer enthusiast. So, how are you doing, Matt? How has the last year been for you? It's been crazy times.
Yeah, it's been crazy times, but it's also been good times. I'm very lucky. I have two young children, so I've had the chance to stay home with them quite a bit. I'm still working full time, but just the fact that I know that I'm home and I'm not leaving on tour. When you're in like a touring band, at least for myself, you go through this period of before you go on tour where you're in this preparation in your mind that you're leaving, and then you come back from a tour, you're in this process of, oh, I'm back. So there's this weird like ambivalent situation that goes on when you're a musician or someone that travels a lot for work. That didn't happen. So I could just focus on being with the family, trying to be present, trying to be involved and seeing them grow. Having a whole summer at home is extremely rare when you're in a touring band because you typically end up playing all the festivals in the summer. So that was cool. Obviously, I missed my whole road friends, my road family, my tour members, my crew. I miss them dearly. Mad shout out to Mega, the Majorcan king, my TM and sound engineer from Mallorca in Europe. Love him, haven't seen him in a long time. And, I just hit the ground running with the podcast and just tried to conduct as many interviews as I could once I realized that everyone was home and, we're all in the same boat trying to still get their band some visibility. So I reached out to some friends, and then subsequently from there, a bunch of PR people found me and started pitching me a bunch of bands. So it's been a really, really busy year for me.
No, absolutely. You've definitely kept yourself busy. I know that obviously as well, you collaborated on some children's books dealing with like social isolation. Could you talk to us a bit more about that? Like what got you started in that project, and do you intend to maybe do more in the future?
Absolutely. I collaborated on it. It's really my wife's project and her friend Jeannie Bond. They have been wanting to do something together for many years. They worked together beforehand at a place, and they really clicked. So it was actually when I came back from Cryptopsy was in a cabin in the woods when last March 2020, when the whole coronavirus, we called it at the time, before it was COVID-19, and everything was shut down. So we were in a cabin in the woods. And when we came home from that 5 days writing the new Cryptopsy record, my wife was like, I want to write a book. And we basically have business meetings. She's the producer of Vox&Hops, very important part of Vox&Hops. So we have business meetings when we go for walks with the kids. That's typically how we talk out our ideas. And this is how we hashed out the idea of creating children's books. She had the idea with Jeannie already, but she like bouncing the ideas off of me because I'm an early childhood educator, which is, I was mentioning that I'm still working full time. I work with young children. Right now I'm working with a group of 4-year-olds or like 3-year-olds turning 4. So I'm with 8 rambunctious children all day long at work. And so I used my expertise, because I went to school for that, to help create a book that reflects the values that I've learned throughout my time in early childhood education. And the first book that we created was really just a reflection of what was happening in my house throughout the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. We made a blanket fort in the hall. It was springtime coming. We were observing the evolution of nature. And if you look at the book, it's called Today We're Staying Home, because everyone was staying home at that time. We just wanted to give like a sense of normalcy to the children and to create like a dialogue piece that could spark conversations between children and the parents. So that was Today We're Staying Home. And then while we had wrapped that one up, we were already thinking about the next one, which was Hidden Rainbow. There was this whole movement going across the States. I'm not sure if it happened in the UK or not, but people were drawing these rainbows and sticking them on their windows, so that you could see them from the outside. So we would go out and go for walks because we live in the city and we don't have a backyard. So to get my kids to move, we go and take lots of walks. And we would play let's find the next rainbow on the next house. And it became like a treasure hunt for these rainbows. And then through that, we developed it into a book where children can talk about their emotions and, using art as a cathartic experience, even as an adult. A lot of us extreme metal musicians are extremely nice and kind people, but that's because we have found this outlet to let us get out all those evil negative, heavy thoughts. So we found that art is cathartic, and you can do that through many forms of art. So that's Hidden Rainbow. That one just came out in December. It took a bit of a time between the two because life happened, and it's like bands releasing albums. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than we planned. But yes, there are more in the works. When is once we find enough time. The podcast is really taken off. So we and my wife's in school, and I'm working, and Cryptopsy's writing. So we will find time to do a third one. We already have an idea for it. We have a few ideas always. So we're pushing forward with that.
I think that's like super positive and wholesome, like especially during this time. It's so relevant, and imagine like a lot of people are feeling a certain way about the situation going on. So the fact like you're spreading this positivity is just amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's what I've always tried to be. I just positive vibes, trying to share goodness in the world, and that's what Vox&Hops is. It's never about being negative or trying to get that clickbait line in Metal Sucks or in Metal Injection. I'm not looking to put friends in a bad place. I've interviewed people just recently. I have an episode that I hacked out a whole bunch because the artist was way too intoxicated, and out of respect to him, and out of respect to the publicist that sent him my way, I didn't want him to be any of this negative stuff to come out. So I've always shown positivity into the world, and I try to do that every day. I put positivity out into the world, and I hope that it circulates around, and that eventually I can get back a little bit of that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible. One thing I massively respect about you is your work ethic. As you mentioned before, obviously you're working full time. You're also a family man. You've also got a massive, ginormous podcast, and also an equally massive and ginormous band. Where do you sort of find time for it? How do you kind of structure to find the time for everything?
Every day is calculated. Every minute of every day is organized. It's really a struggle, and up until recently, I've really been. I had to organize time when I don't do stuff because it was getting a bit much. Luckily, the band is on a moment where they're composing, and the way Cryptopsy works is, at least for my involvement, it is that they write the songs and then they pass them to me, and then I work on them. So I have my concept. I know what I'm going to write about, but I haven't really tackled writing anything yet. So for the past year, I've been waiting for them, encouraging them. So I've had that a little bit of time. I'm very interested in the whole process and what's going on, but I'm not there saying, no, don't play that note, play this note. I trust them, and I know that they know what they're doing. And then when it comes to the studio time, they trust me, and we move forward like that. Unless, Donaldson, my guitarist, produces me, so he has a bit more say in everything that goes on. But but yeah, every minute is organized. I work 40 to 45 hours a week. I recently sat down to calculate how many hours goes into a typical Vox&Hops episode, and it's anywhere from 6.5 to 7 hours of work for one episode. So, and that's 30-minute episodes. So I find the time, I make it work. I've gotten really good at multitasking, and it's all about focus, and I'm really good at doing like repetitive tasks. So I typically do the same thing every day, every week, so like one day will be the day that I record my intros and outros, and then the next day is the day that I edit those, and so on and so forth. And now I only have specific days that I record interviews on to give me more of a structure. But it's definitely a challenge, and I'm often very, very tired. And craft beer is delicious and amazing.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't help with the tiredness factor. But I still, I sort of tied in craft beer as a huge passion, obviously, but it's also something that helps me relax, which is a good thing and a dangerous thing at the same time. But I did do sober February, and that was amazing, and I did sleep better, and I really do feel that I didn't struggle throughout the month. So it's not like I need the alcohol. It's just once I sit down, I have my couch, I'm looking at it there. Once I sit on that couch and I crack open that beer when I'm not working, it's a happy moment.
Yeah. Work hard, play hard.
Yeah, it's just like I couldn't believe how much work that you put into it, because we like with this podcast, like we underestimated how much work a podcast is. Like every hour, like you're going like, okay, let's plan the next guest, let's plan what we're going to do for the next episode. It's just it's a constant thing, and I'm actually like blown away as well with like how you also manage like family time as well. Like it's insane. that you work.
It just has to be organized. It has to be spoken about. I'm lucky that my wife's my producer, and she's very forgiving with me. Would be one. But and we each have our strengths, and we keep working towards that. And it's and at first I released 1 episode a week, and then it got to the point where I had 2 episodes a week, and then the pandemic hit and I had so many interviews. I was like, well, I guess I'll do 3 episodes a week. And then I went back to work and I was like, okay, I'll go back to 2 episodes a week. And then there's times when I'm like, well, I guess it's going to be 3 episodes a week again. But I always just make it work. It depends on what's happening. We scheduled stuff out. Something I can suggest for you guys is really like planning months in ahead, having everything organized, having like I know who my next guests are up until July.
Oh, wow.
Just because I have it organized that way, and I know when I'm speaking to them and what time, and everything's organized that way. And I know which episodes are coming out until July as well. So I would suggest that. So there's that whole fear of what's going to happen next week. I don't like that. I quickly learned that I wanted to stack as much content as I could. And that was something that I learned very early on. Like I launched the podcast with 10 episodes already finished and ready.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I think
for us as well, like, we're starting to get a bit better with it. For example, like, we do have like at least a month ahead prepared with bands that we're going to interview. When we first started, we just like, should we just message a bunch of bands, see if they want to come on? They probably won't. And then like loads of them came back saying they wanted to come. I was like, okay, we did not prepare for this. So yeah, but I think we're just starting to kind of catch our feet a bit and just like know how many people to book for this section and what we can sort of do with our jobs as well, so it won't be too overloaded with editing time and interviewing time. So I think we're on like a good streak at the moment. But yeah, it was definitely quite overwhelming when we first started.
Absolutely. I was lucky that I would just write my friends, right? It was the first 100 episodes are basically me and my friends just hanging out. So I was very, very lucky coming from, the world of Cryptopsy and touring with so many people. It was easy. It was super easy. And especially the first 10, those are like people that I knew and I trusted. And I was not too nervous to sit down and, finally be the interviewer.
Yeah.
As opposed to the interviewee.
Absolutely. So on the board of Cryptopsy then, when you first debuted on the Unspoken King, did you feel like any pressure being like not the new, you being the new vocalist of the band? And like, how do you deal with that? Because I know that you do get obviously sometimes what she said on your podcast as well that, some people say, oh, yeah, I really like your work on Unsurvival and stuff like that. So how was the pressure like, coming into it and like, how did you deal with that?
Oh, well, I was completely unprepared. So the story, I'm sure everyone's heard it by now, is that they asked me to join the band because they wanted something different. I originally said, no, I'm going to make it on my own. I was in this band called 3 Mile Scream. We were signed to a subsidiary of Universal. There was some hype going on. It was doing well. And then the dude that ran that band left, and I like trusted him, followed him, blindly for many years to a good place. He was a very good leader. Shout out to Mike Marino. We're still friends to this day. And he left the band. And as soon as he left the band, I hung up the phone with him and I picked up the phone and I called back Flo and I said, are you still looking for a singer? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So I tried out, got the thing, but I wasn't the ultimate Cryptopsy fan. It wasn't that Mark Wahlberg rock star movie where I'm in the front row singing every grunt with Lord Worm, and then Lord Worm passes me the microphone. It was not that. It was, and it wasn't even like the original time that they'd switch. When I went from Lord Worm to Mike DeSalvo, Lord Worm basically hand chose DeSalvo, and then they worked together to make the next era happen, and they had this whole transitory whatever, they had a gig where they passed the torch to each other. That didn't happen this time. It was like, here's this new kid, this new singer. I had no idea what I was doing. I was still doing 3 Mile Scream. I had it in my head that if I did Cryptopsy and 3 Mile would get more attention. I could do some death metal vocals, but I definitely wasn't a death metal vocalist. And we did the Unspoken King, which came out and everybody hated. So that was hard. And I remember being in the studio just trying to do my best and having Donaldson, who was the engineer for that as well, making this like disgusted face and saying, yeah, it's good, but he hated it. And we tried, like I tried my best, and it took me many, many years to finally feel comfortable being a death metal vocalist. Like it was work, just putting in the work in the jam room and on the tours, and pushing myself to try to learn to adapt to this new genre of extreme metal. Because I was a new metal child. I fell into extreme metal via, early on through Manson, and then into Korn, and then, Limp Bizkit. I never really liked Limp Bizkit, but there was that first album's pretty okay. And then after that, they lost me a bit, and then Mudvayne, and then Pantera. And then I went to Pantera, at that point. And then the whole new wave of American metal, the whole Lamb of God, Killswitch Engage, and then that sort of transitioned over to the European In Flames, The Haunted, that whole side of things, Arch Enemy. I was never into like Cannibal Corpse until Kill came out, and I picked that up. And then I was like, oh shit, what is he doing with his voice? That's amazing. It's so clear. You understand what he's saying, but the tone is so dope. That really just changed a lot. But I was never a death metal kid until I got into Cryptopsy, and I sort of had to be. But that took years. It took many years.
I mean, to be honest, like when I think about Cryptopsy, like my favorite albums are probably the ones that you starred in. So, The Book of Suffering. I still think as well, 2 Pound Torch is one of the heaviest metal songs ever created, and Sire of Sin, like they're my 2 favorite Cryptopsy songs. So I definitely like your era of Cryptopsy the most. But in terms of your progression into metal, like that is pretty much the same for me. Like I started off in new metal, progressed to like thrash, then it went to death metal. It's almost like a ladder that you climb up, and then you just get to like the top, and it's like, oh well, I guess this is it now. I'm not gonna get heavier than this.
And then you get hit by something else that's even more extreme that you don't understand. Yeah. And that's always what it is you don't understand it at first, but you're super intrigued and you keep going back to it. That's when you know you're onto something.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was the same for me as well. Like I got into it quite late in the game. Like Brad kind of got into metal like in high school. And I had another friend also conveniently also called Brad, who got into metal around when we got into college and stuff like that. And he was like, check out this band, it's Slipknot. And it was just when they'd released, what was the name of the album? The Devil and I, the
Grey
album
Chapter.
Devil and the Grey Chapter, the Grey Chapter. Just as they released that, that's when I jumped into it, and I literally fell into the deep end. So my first ever gig was Suffocation.
That's my voice.
my first ever live gig was seeing Suffocation at Eiger Studios.
I love that.
It was so funny. I was sat there wearing a Korn shirt because I just kind of transitioned into heavier stuff, but I was still into the new metal phase. So I had all these OG death metal heads kind of look at me going, what the fuck is this kid doing here?
What does he know?
But then Terrence was there ripping his riffs, and
honestly, it was probably one of the best gigs I've ever been to. It was such a shock as well because they had a slam band on to open, and they had Cryptic Shift on, which is quite a sci-fi death metal band, and then they had were followed by quite a brutal band such as Suffocation. So I was there I remember being sat there and just for sound check, being like, what the fuck? I've never heard anything like this before.
I love them. They're super fun humans. Suffocation. I gotta get Terrence on the show. I've been saying that for a while. I had a moment where I was supposed to when they came through Montreal, but they were so late because of some stupid border thing. It didn't work out, but I definitely should. I had on the list.
That'd be an awesome episode.
Actually, he'd made my day the other day. I followed him on Instagram, and he followed me back. I was like, I was like,
he's the coolest. He's really the coolest. He's super fun.
Yeah, sure. With regards to Cryptopsy and obviously your vocals, what's the biggest change to your vocals that you've made recently, that you've always like kind of expanded as a musician as you've been in Cryptopsy?
Oh, absolutely. I sort of have gone backwards, and you mentioned Sire of Sin before, Brad, and there's like a passage in that tune where I have like this fry scream technique that I've been using a lot in Cryptopsy since probably since probably really the self-titled with 2 Pound Torch.
Yep.
So I always use that voice. And then just stepping back into the recording studio when we were doing the tome 2 of the Book of Suffering, I was just testing out my voice, and I did like a more open George-esque guttural cry. And Chris was like, "What's that voice? That's cool. Do some stuff in that." So I was like, "Okay, whatever." And then that became like this big part of tome 2 that we wished we used more of, and then it has become now my Lord Worm voice. So anytime I'm doing any Lord Worm, I'm doing this extreme open guttural airy voice, and that's like the type of voice that I can do at any time. Like today I woke up, I hosted a Thirsty Thursday yesterday until late, recording interview with Brittany Slays of Unleash the Archers with all the Vox and Hops heads that were there, and I woke up a bit dry and a bit, I had a fun time last night, and I was like, okay, I got asked to do some guest vocals for a really cool band from Australia. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Let's just do it. And I did it like in 2 takes. It's like a voice that I can just use anytime. It's like an open, really, just like a loud roar. And I love it. And I use it all the time. And I'm definitely going to use way, way more of it on the upcoming Crpytopsy record, because it's like something that I can just pull out of my pocket anytime.
That's so cool that you can just like bring it out like that. Like, because you get some people that they try and do the vocals and they have to proper warm themselves up a bit, but you can just go like that.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. Before I do vocals, I have to like properly warm up. I'm not at the point where I've discovered like a voice that I can just like activate. I need to like I'll sit there for like a couple hours like doing your breathing exercises and then gradually just getting myself down to the sort of like the more throaty sort of stuff, like kind of the fry sort of stuff, and then go into quite lower stuff later on. But I always hate like warming up for vocals because I end up sitting there for ages like.
I do religiously warm up, and to go back to Terrence, anytime Terrence sees me, he'll go hey and come and give me a hug, before the virus, and that's because I do that. I'm like a religiously warm up before every gig, but this morning I didn't. I just crawled out of bed and did some guttural vocals, but it's important to warm up, and it's important to just stay in shape, especially on tour. If you're doing it every night, you got to stay in shape, and it actually gets easier if you're doing it every night for some reason, because the muscle memory is there and you know exactly how to move those muscles the way it's supposed to. It's not like a guitar, right? You can't like see your fingers and move no wonder I'm playing the wrong note. My finger's on the wrong fret. So it's strange with the voice. It's like a lot more imagining, focusing, direction of airflow, mouth positionment, tongue positionment, relaxing everything while staying super extreme. It takes time to focus, and then you master that in the jam room, and then you step onto stage, and then you're out of breath and you're fucked. Then you got to learn how to do that.
Yeah. Well, I remember I remember when I did tracking for my band recently. I remember I think we tracked vocals for about like 7 hours, just to get each one right. And I remember there's a certain bit in the song where I feel like the scream could have been better, but it was towards the end of the day, and I was like, fuck it, it's a good take. I'm not gonna want to do another one. And then,
but now you hear it now, right? Now you hear it now, and you're like, motherfucker, I hate that take.
Yeah,
no, because I was showing Brad, and they'd be like, that section, I'd be like, I fucking hate that one section. Like that one section, I fucking hate it. And he'd be like,
still happens to me.
Yeah, because I was saying it's not like you were saying, it's not like a guitar, like where it's like, oh, I kind of fucked up that note, but you can't really hear it. You can hear it so much when it's yourself. Like it's so like maddening because you sit there and going, that just doesn't sound as good as I want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially now, it's a little bit easier nowadays with, and I didn't experience very much of this, but I can imagine back in the day when everything cost so much money to go to the studio. Nowadays we have much more freedom. It is, we're basically tracking wherever the hell we want. We're going to a friend's house, or we're not renting this ginormous studio because it was the only option. But it always ended up being that the vocalist would be the last, and they'd have the least amount of time because everyone else would always bust their allotted time for recording something. So it's like, well, you got 2 days to track your whole record. And that's Martin from Asphyx that told me a story such as this. So he just had to learn to be good and automatically perfect every time. So he does like full song takes, and that's what's on the record to this day. How cool is that? And that blew my mind.
That's amazing. I couldn't imagine doing that, because every single like section I did, I had to do at least like 4 times over just to be like, I like that one the better. Like it's one of those things where it's like it's so nerve-wracking as well. Like when you go in and you like hype it all up and you're like, shit, look at the time. So
yeah, I just Zen. I'm with Chris. So Chris and I, we've been recording together since, it's probably 15 years now that I've only recorded vocals with Chris. So it's we have a nice relationship where it's very zen, and I completely trust him. But it's always a little bit nerve-wracking that you're going to suck.
Yeah, that's what I like, because it was my first ever time tracking vocals. So I've not been doing it long. I've been doing it for about a year. So I sat in the car right there, like, oh no. But yeah, I was sat in the car right there, like absolutely shitting my pants, to be honest. Like going, what if I just fuck up? And the producer's like, hey, shit, get him out of here.
That's funny. My I'm not going to name names there, but I played with someone who would sit in his car for a good 10, 15 minutes before going into the studio and contemplate leaving for that exact reason. Yeah.
That's funny.
So obviously, like, you've done your band, you've got the podcast. What would you say is the a biggest achievement to date for you? It can be anything that you've done in life.
I got 2 good kids, so you have to say that. I've been with my wife. I've been with my wife since 2002. Very lucky to have met her. Just she helped me grow into such a, mature, and she's very wise and good at putting all of my crazy ideas into the right pathway. I just spew ideas all the time. That's just how my brain works, and she catches the good ones and makes them work. So I think I'm really, really happy about accomplishing the fact that we've stayed together for so long and have worked together.
It sounds like you're a real power couple.
It's we're working really hard to do stuff. Obviously I'm proud. I was proud the day that we played Wacken. That was like something that I wanted to do for my entire life. And then of course there was the whole lead up to getting there, and we were late, and it was a nightmare. I'm brushing my hair and warming up in the van, and we're like driving there, and there's a guy in a 4-wheeler that's like ripping us through, and we like get on stage right as we're supposed to play, and we're like, please, can we switch slots? And they're like, no, you must play. So we get there. Somehow Flo's kit is like miraculously like just about perfectly put up, because he has like an intricate setup for his kit, as most drummers do. And I step out onto stage, and I'm holding a Shure microphone, and they open the mic, the curtains, and I'm like, I'm endorsed by Sennheiser. I'm like, whatever, here we go.
That sounds just crazy.
Yeah, so that was stressful.
I was going to say, like,
sorry, go for it, Brad.
No, it's like this is how it just went into it. Like you just automatically on stage straight away. Like I couldn't do that. I feel like I'm so like underprepared. But did it all go like smoothly then? Despite
it was awesome. Yeah. It was a good set. Yeah, and you can see, if you watch it on YouTube, you can see that the guys had the scrim set up on the side, but they weren't brought out, and like just things like that. So moments like that. The podcast, like when Heavy Montreal, which is Montreal's like premier metal promoter, stepped on and started presenting the episodes. That was a big moment, especially because when I launched the podcast, I was at Heavy Montreal in 2018, and I was like, next year I'm going to be here as a media. And then the next year I was there as a media, and then I was like, I'm going to eventually like work with them. And then the year after I did. So little things like that. I'm sort of a person that is never satisfied. I always want more. Don't really relish victory. So it's like become like a mental goal of mine to cherish each accomplishment. So things like that really has been awesome. Signing to Sound Talent Media was super cool too. Basically like a record label for podcasts. The Punk Rock MBA is on there, the Tone Mob, Doc Coyle, the X-Man with Doc Coyle, which is one of the podcasts I listened to when I started thinking about having a podcast. So just having that home, I was very stoked about that. I signed my first sponsor. Things, just these little things like that. And I'm in the currently. When is this episode going to come out? Because I'll talk about something or not.
It will probably be out next
week.
Friday.
Next
Okay,
Friday.
so I won't talk about it. I'm organizing this super amazing, huge project right now that, spurred it. It came to life 4 weeks ago at this point, and now there's over 250 people involved. It's insane. I can't imagine that this is happening, but it's really, really cool, and I'm excited to announce that. When I signed my first record deal with 3 Mile, that was a big moment for me. Getting into Cryptopsy was a big moment for me. There's always, getting my first beer collab. I was so excited about that. There's all these moments that when Henderson Brewing made me my Devastation on the Nation beer. It was a black lager. It was for because I was organizing craft beer parties because I was the sponsoring Devastation on the Nation, which never happened, but they still brewed the beer and sent me some. It was delicious. And then Vox&Hops, which is Overhop Canada here in Montreal, they brewed a beer for me for my 2nd anniversary. I was super stoked about that. The Fermenteur brewed my 1st year anniversary when I interviewed Lord Worm live at Turbo House. That was another moment that was just like, I'm going to have a live interview and people are going to come. And it was packed, so just these like little increments of things, of successes that just excite me and make me proud. And I just try to just keep cherishing them, but yet still always looking forward, trying to grow, trying to spread positivity. It's always about spreading positivity in a world full of shit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's important to always stay hungry as well. Like, you said that you relish every achievement, but you always want the next thing, which I think even no matter what you do, whether you're a creative person, whether you're a musician, whether you do video editing, like anything like that, it's just important to just always look for the next goal.
Yeah, it's a good mindset to have. It's definitely a good mindset to have. Obviously, we all know that you love craft beer. What was your first experience with craft beer? What was your first beer?
Oh, my first beer. This I remember. There's 2 early memories of beer. My earliest memory, I mentioned on the podcast a few times, is I was walking home from elementary school. It was in Canada. It was cold. I was wearing these like knitted mittens, and I knocked over some beer bottle which was next to the Dairy Queen, which is like a ice cream shop, and it spilled on my hands. This like leftover nasty beer, big corporate beer, Molson I think it was, or something, or Labatt, and I remember smelling it. It smelled so bad, and I was like, oh, how can anyone drink this? It's disgusting. My dad never drank, right? My dad still doesn't drink. He doesn't get it. His dad wasn't. It's not because his dad was involved too much in it. He enjoyed his whiskeys and scotch. He's Scottish, so that came with that. My mother never drank, but she came from a family of addiction, so it was more tied to that. And then in high school, of course, you go to the party, and finally we get this cases of Lucky Lager, which doesn't exist anymore. And we had this party. I was in grade 9 or grade 10. I can't remember. So I was probably like 16 or 15 years old when I really got drunk for the first time, and we got wild. It was a crazy night, super fun party. It tasted horrible. I remember the next day my friend woke up and he had cereal and he used beer as the milk.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
seriously?
Yeah. Shout out to Mike Ramsey. And that was a wild night. That was really fun. But then, beer became just something like a utilitarian thing to have a good time, to unleash. I was a very emotionally tightly wrung, very shy in high school, but extremely self-conscious, attention seeker, but I didn't know how to do it or how to get it, so I would just sort of be whiny. I wasn't cool. I didn't do well with the ladies. I always was the best friend route, which didn't help with my whole self-esteem either. So I would get drunk and then become a bit of a whiny, pathetic person for a while. But then I found fun. I got into a band, and then that changed a little bit. And I had like a gang of guys that we were really tight, and we would drink beer. We would take giant bottles of like Gatorade with the big open mouth hole, and we would burn a hole in the bottom of it so you could put your thumb over it and shotgun these beers. But we would shotgun like 3-4 beers at a time, and then just puke, but like keep a bit of it, but we would get really drunk really fast. We called it head rushing. Highly do not suggest people doing that, but it was lots of fun, lots of fun. So from there, that was like still shitty beer. My first good beers really started when I was touring with Cryptopsy. I was playing the Masquerade in Atlanta, which has morphed into a different Masquerade, but the original Masquerade in Atlanta. And there's this little convenience store around the corner. Me and Chris Donaldson went, this was in 2008, and picked up some Sierra Nevada Pale Ale and Blue Moon, because he remembered these because Lord Worm had
fucking love Blue Moon.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm more on the Sierra Nevada train. They're that hoppy bite. And picked those up, drank this. It's the Sierra Nevada really that really like caught me. I was like, what is this profile? What is this taste? That came back home, and then I moved out of my parents' house with Jessica, my wife, back in 2009, and there was this mix pack from St. Ambroise. I'm actually wearing the shirt, funnily enough. So they're not craft, but I love them to death. I've had them on the podcast because of this exact reason. There was this 12 pack that had 3 different beers, and then it had an apricot ale. So out of the 12, there was 3 apricot ale. So I would walk into the house with a 12 pack of beer every night, just about. And I would tell my wife, I was like, oh, but don't worry, I got you the apricot ale beer. So it was like sort of like this. You can't get mad at me. I bought it for you. And then I would plow through a bunch of beers. This is back in the day. I didn't have any responsibilities. And there was this particular beer. It was their pale ale, and it had like a weird soapy, hoppy bite that I just loved. And it was the hops. So from there, that grew. It grew. Unibrew is a big thing over here. They have super metal labels, and they're like 9%, all Belgian-inspired brews. That really changed a lot for me. And then there's a particular beer in which is the the Le Castal Yakima IPA, and that is I bought it because it was biological. It was bio, and I thought that would make it healthy for us. And once again, my wife wouldn't complain. And it had this perfect West Coast IPA feel, and that changed everything. That was like, and then I wanted to taste everything. And from there, that was in 2013 and 14 maybe, and then from there, it just didn't stop. And I was inspired heavily from Yuri Rameau, who's from Unhuman. He was in Cryptopsy for a year or so, intermittently, between members leaving and coming back there. But he was hugely influential on both my vocals and my craft beer palate.
Absolutely. I think like my first experience, because I mean, when I first started like drinking out, I'd never really liked beer. Like, I'd only have really bad beers. So stuff like Stella, which just tastes like piss. It's just the worst thing. But then someone said you should try it again. I was a bit older then, maybe like 18. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. So I had like Budweiser, and that was like my first introduction, but it wasn't obviously a craft beer. It was just getting me slowly into it. And then I think a few years later, I was like, right, okay, let's see what else they've got. So a Brewdog Punk IPA was like my first one, because that's one that's always everywhere. Like most bars that you go to will always have Punk IPA on tap. So I thought I'd give that a go, like that. And then I tried Blue Moon, which, to be fair, Blue Moon is one thing. I've tried so many craft beers, but that's still one of my favorites because it's just so smooth. You've got the orange taste to it. It's delicious. And then I just kind of fell in love with craft beer since then. Like, it's just one of my favorite things to drink. I got into stouts about half a year ago. It's like the salted caramel and the chocolate ones. Like, it feels like it's like a nice drink to have after you've eaten like your tea, because it's like a nice dessert. But no, they're really delicious. What about you, Nathan? What was your like first introduction?
So to drinking or like craft beer?
It's craft beer.
Probably when I started watching Vox&Hops, to be fair.
That's cool.
Because the thing is with me, I've always had like a bit of a weird relationship with drinking. I've never been too fussed. If something tastes nice, I'll have a lot of it. So I didn't really drink a lot. And the stuff I did drink, I hated. So I don't like spirits. For one, I really hate spirits. I could only drink spirits if they were mixed with something. Beer, the one I had, like, always had really shitty beer, right? Like your standard, like you go to Tesco and you take it off the fucking shelf, like sort of stuff. So I started watching Vox&Hops, and he was recommending loads of different beers, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give this, like craft beer stuff a shot. So I went into my local shop and like, right, I'm gonna just look for some craft beer. And I saw Brewdog on the wall, but it was Hazy Jane. And to this day, that's my favorite beer. So I tried that, and then it just kind of sent me on a spiral. So yeah, me and Brad are kind of like snobs when it comes to beers now. Like, we won't go back to the the Budweiser or anything like that, because let's face it, like, craft beer is just way better.
Yeah, and the hazier the better.
Yeah, I'm all about the haze. I love it. But it's there's a beer for every situation, such as right now, because mine is empty. I need to restock. I'm gonna grab it from the fridge. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go
no worries.
I've only got one left.
Yeah, same.
My stout left.
Yeah, same. I feel like I feel like it's gonna hit me at some point, because I've been drinking some of these like French beers that my mum bought through the day. I think I'm on like my fifth or sixth beer.
What brewery is it?
I can't remember. I'll have to tell you.
Yes, I'm switching gears. Mad Haze here. This is
I love that can art.
Yeah, this is Brewski, double dry hopped IPA. I was there yesterday because we are brewing a collab, which, if this is coming out next week, it will be the week after. Thursday after, we're doing a beer together. So I'm stoked with that. I was there yesterday brewing with them.
Can I order from the UK? Like, or is it just shipping in like Canada?
No, it's illegal to ship beer internationally.
Oh, okay.
So I can't encourage you. I can't encourage you to do that, but some people might send you snow globes.
That's amazing. Has it got any fruity taste to it? Like any passion fruit or?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, mango going on here. Ooh, they have this like unique like yeast taste, brewski. I really, really like it. This is a hopped with Talus, Belma, and Strata, which are strange hops. They're not common. All these new experimental hops. It's super cool. Their brewer, Derek, very cool, very smart individual, and Zach, two cool people. We had a good day yesterday. I'm very stoked about it. We're doing a fruited sour. They call it brew juice. So it's basically they take like a sour base brew, and then they add fruit puree to it, and they call it brew juice. So obviously, if you're going to team up with Vox and Hops, it's going to be called Brutal Juice.
That's so cool.
That's a great name.
It sounds like super refreshing as well.
It's amazing. It's like tart. I have not. No, a milk stout. Yes.
Yeah, this
does kill my tummy. I'm a vegan, so I'll drink beer with lactose, but that's what makes me. I'm a bad vegan, but it kills my tummy the next day. Just the nastiest farts, but it's worth it for the beer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know this must be like a very hard question for you, but we're gonna lay it on here anyway. What's your favorite craft beer and why? Is there anyone that just takes the throne for you, or can you not choose?
I think it's so hard nowadays because nobody has a flagship anymore. There's like styles that I like, and then like but you can't have like, because these guys they put out like I think 80 beers last year or something.
Oh wow.
Back in the day, a brewery would like make a beer and they'd be like, this beer is good, and then they would work for the rest of their life making that beer, and then making that beer just a little bit better, but it was basically the same beer. Nowadays it's always different, so it's hard to pick just one. I like hazy IPAs. I'm really into it.
Yeah.
I'm really into barrel aged coffee stouts. I really, really like that style.
I like them as well.
So like if I had to pick my favorite of that, like there's a classic one from Montreal called Péché Mortel from Dieu du Ciel, it's pretty much available across the globe because they do this international day called Péché, and Péché Mortel means the unforgivable, the ultimate sin. It's like a Bible reference. It's basically when Eve ate the apple from the snake is what that is. So they have this day where all across the globe, in pubs across everywhere, and I'm sure there's one close to you guys, where they have Péché Mortel on tap. So it's a huge brewery, but it's so good. And they just had the bourbon version come out. It was so good. Yeah. But that would probably be one of my top 5 beers for sure,
especially
in bourbon.
That sounds super awesome.
One thing that you always ask, like some of your guests on Vox and Hops, is the best or funniest tour stories. So we thought it'd be interesting to ask you what your funniest tour story is.
We have the horror story. I like the horror story one. We were with Yuri. Yuri was in the band. It was in 2009. We were doing the European tour, and the whole tour itself is a horror story. So we order these shirts. I won't name from what company, and I'm sure that it's not their fault. The people that were running stuff in the band at that point were not the sharpest. So, and no offense if you're listening. But there was a typo on the shirt where European, there was no A, there was double E. So it was like P, like urinating, European. That was part one. So we get these shirts. And then we get there and we're in this little shitty Sprinter van, sleeping on the bunks and the floor, like no bunks, just like on the benches. We had some merch girl that over there, and she was useless. No offense if you're listening.
Matt's calling out everyone here.
and there's this guy that's driving us. He was amazing. I've met him since then. I believe his name was Martin. He was really cool. He actually showed me the band. That's actually the UK band, Sixth.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He showed me them. That the Bland something album. It's a good one. I'm gonna listen to that later. I haven't listened in a long time. And he had this friend with him that was just there with us. So the first gig, the kid is high on something. We don't know what, but he's taken something, and he's crazy, and he's partying and drinking. And we like to party, so it's okay. But we get to this hotel room that we get to lie down in for X number of hours, as it is on tour.
Yeah.
And the guy, I draw the short end of the straw, and I end up having to share a bed with this guy. And he keeps screaming, and he was German. He keeps screaming in German in his sleep. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I can't sleep. And then I'm like, if he touches me one more time, and he was like kicking, I'm getting out of the bed. I'm going to lie on the floor. I don't care. So he touched me. I lie on the floor. And the next morning we wake up. The kid had pissed himself. The whole bed was just sopping and pissed. So I'm so happy that I didn't sleep in the bed with him. So that's level one of this. There was like the silver lining of this whole tour was that we were going to go play in the Ukraine at this, I think it's called Metal Missions Festival. And it's like at the beach. It's beautiful. We were supposed to be there like a whole day, a day off, hanging out at the beach, just enjoying ourselves. Of course, we drive after the last German gig for like 5 hours, I want to say, in this shitty little van again. And we get to the airport, and there's this whole like, oh, well, you have to pay X amount of dollars extra because you have too much over. So the Ukrainian promoter is supposed to pay this. So he doesn't want to. So there's this back and forth. We end up sitting at the airport for like 6 hours, just on the floor, just waiting. And then finally it's like, no, okay, I found another company that will fly you, and there's no over, but you have to go back to the city that you were in the night before. The van is gone, everything. So we rented limos and crawled into limos with all of our gear, drive back. This is our day off that we're supposed to be at the beach. Finally get into the airport, finally land in the Ukraine, and it's like 12:30 at night. We get to we walk out, and there's this man standing with a sign that says Cryptopsy. So we go to him, and we try to communicate with him. He speaks no English, no French, he speaks Ukrainian. So we don't speak Ukrainian. So it was like, okay, we're going with this man. There was no like handler there. Like typically there's like a tour manager or handler that would be there to like greet us. Not that night. So he drives us in the dark into this like commune. And we were like, we're gonna die. This is the end of our lives. And we get to this hotel. Luckily we didn't die. The person I was sharing the room with swears that he heard the door open, someone come in. It was like right around the time that Hostel had come out. So we had all these thoughts going on in our mind. Finally, we wake up, we eat breakfast, we go travel even further to get to the beach area. We see where we were supposed to be hanging out, and it was beautiful. And I was like, okay, well, now we need to go play the show. And they bring us to this room, and they put us in this room, and they lock us in. And they're like, you stay here. So we waited there for an hour or so. And then we're setting up and it's a disaster. And then the army comes with guns on stage and like, you play now. And we're like, we played. There was a guy on stage with 3 nipples. And
this is the wildest shit I've ever heard.
This is all true. And then we finally at the end went into the Black Sea, because that's where the beach was. So we like, I'm going in the Black Sea. I'm going. We went to the Black Sea, and then it's like we had to go. That was it. But we couldn't sleep there that night. We had to get back into the van or the cars to drive back to the airport so that we could fly to Russia the next day. So uncomfortable in the car. It was like the worst. I was just upset and frustrated. And then all of a sudden, Chris's guitar soft case headstock sort of lands here, and I just put my head and it was perfect, and I passed out. Woke up at the airport. They dropped us off at the terminal. And then we're waiting. We're sleeping on the benches, as bands do, as we wait. And then we get woken up in like a kerfuffle, like we're at the wrong terminal. So we had to carry all the gear forever to the next terminal. And then we got onto the plane to Russia. And Russia went well, and the rest of the tour was okay. But what a tour that was.
That's wild. See, I'm thinking of an idea. I'm thinking the vlog of suffering, and you should make that into a TV show, because that is just so wild. It's like every time it just like gets more strange. It just top that every time. Wow.
The European tour, and the guy pisses the bed, and you can't make that up.
At least you saved yourself there. You moved out of the bed.
Yeah. Well, I've done the opposite to someone else, so I can't do that bad.
I think that's like the funniest one that we've had. Like, I think the second funniest was probably when we had Cytotoxin on, and they talked about lady fights.
Dude. No, I just watched that. I laughed. That was amazing. Did they talk about the one in the bus?
Yeah, they mentioned like you guys being there as well.
I believe it was aborted as well.
It was aborted, benighted. Aborted, benighted, Cytotoxin, and us. There's footage of this out there, but hilarious. It's with Garrity. If you guys, they better have said it was Garrity, because it's amazing. Andrew Garrity, he's been on the podcast 3 times now. Actually, I've had him on twice as a guest, once as a live Thirsty Thursday guest. I love Garrity. He is insane. He's super fun. You should get Garrity on.
We'll try.
I'll make it happen. Garrity is priceless.
That'd be super awesome. So, like, obviously, you've interviewed so many people, some amazing interviews. Do you ever get nervous before an interview? Like, was there any band or member that like you're a super massive fan of that you're so nervous to speak to them, or you're just like, I'm chilling, I'm cool? Like countlessly nervous and worried all the time. All the time. There's that little pep talk. I like go to the bathroom right before. It's like going on stage. I get that. I call it. I ask this question all the time on the podcast: is how do you fill the void of that feeling of being on stage, of that goosebumps? And the podcast is that, like when I landed George from Cannibal Corpse. Oh yeah, that was good.
And I know him, So we toured together, but still, I was nervous, and he was awesome, of course. That episode comes out in a week and a half or something. So super stoked about that. That was one for sure. Jesse Leach from Killswitch. I've been a fan forever. A lot of them. People that, like Jamie Jasta, Trey Spruance from Mr. Bungle. Coming up this Sunday, I'm having a chat with Dwayne from Tomahawk. So I've been a fan of Tomahawk forever. I'm nervous about that. The drummer Dale from the Melvins. I was nervous about that. I'm especially nervous if I'm not prepared enough. So
yeah, I was super nervous for this one, to be fair. Like, it was like, just he's like trying to give me this thing, like, if you say that you're more excited than nervous, then you trick your mind to believe in it. But yeah, so like
the worst is when the artist or the guest that you have doesn't talk.
Yeah.
No, we haven't had that issue, to be fair.
Well, I think we haven't. Like, there's been some cases where it's been like, a lot of people being harder to like sort of like cut a conversation out of than others. Like, you just kind of have to like roll with the punches, where it's like, okay, let's see. Okay, they're interested in this. Let's get them talking. So we'll just throw in like a question about that. That gets them like instantly comfortable, and then they just start chatting shit from there, basically.
Yeah. And like me and Nathan are like quite informal. Like, this is not like a formal podcast. Like, what's your favorite band? You know, what's your favorite time?
No.
Like,
no, nobody wants to do those anyways.
Exactly. Well, we interviewed a band, really cool band, Paleface. We had a great time having a chat. Like, when we first started, they were like, oh yeah, do you mind if we like, drink and smoke on the podcast? I was like, yeah, you can
Please
do. You can do whatever you want to. Like,
can we just not record the beginning and we'll wait till you're intoxicated?
That's the interesting thing though. Like when we've got bands on that have like drank, we've noticed like as it's gone on and they've drank more, like they've started like having more of a laugh sort of thing. Yeah. Well, it's weird. Like there's like a fine line where it's like, okay, Brad, if they keep having more drinks though, like, I don't know.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. But that's the respect to the artist again. Like it is that balance of you want to interview a person when they're still in, because we all have like a public face, right? So and it's something that we've decided with the podcast is that I can enjoy craft beer, but I can never ever be at like a beer event or a public event and I'm intoxicated.
Yeah.
I can't be perceived as a drunk. And that's something very important. And that's what I would do with my guests. I wouldn't want my guests to be too much, they've gone too far. So I would definitely edit an episode. Like I interviewed my bassist and we were both very drunk on that tour with Aborted and Cytotoxin and that exact tour. And I scrapped the whole episode because it was unusable. But
yeah, for sure.
But I don't know if you listened to that episode, but at the outro of it, I put a snippet of the original because I re-interviewed him, and we talk about the disastrous episode that never happened, that did happen, and I included a snippet of the original in the outro, and it's ridiculous, but we went for 45 minutes, and what we talked about, I don't know, but.
No, I completely agree. Like, you've got to be like merry, but like I wouldn't say to Nathan, right, Nathan, we've got an next interview. Let's just do like 5 Jaeger bombs before we go on and just get absolutely obliterated. Like, you want to make sure it's concise, but it's always have like a bit of drink. You're a bit merry and just having a good time. But there's definitely a limit to what me and Nathan would do before we go on the podcast.
And it happens to me too. Sorry, go for it.
Oh, no worries. There is a couple episodes though where I think our first episode where we filmed it all, turns out the SD card had like been corrupted and it deleted the whole thing. And all the way through that we were drinking and I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine to go. And then halfway through the alcohol started hitting me. And Brad was like, fuck it, we're not filming it again. We're not filming it again. Our first episode was like 3 hours long. So we're not filming the 3 hours again. So
no.
That's not the best one though. The best one was the second episode we filmed where you were high as fuck. Like and all the way through it you can just see like your just eyes, it just looked like you were dead in the eyes, and then when it like faded out at the end it just looked like your soul had left your body.
I'll give you some backstory on it. Me and my friend had made some brownies like the night before. Had some brownies. Woke up, I was like, okay, I've got to film the podcast today. I kind of feel weird. I felt fine. It was just that it was still affecting my eyes. Like my eyes still looked very like bloodshot and like small, like and quite a lot of bags. I could function. I was just sat there like, yeah, talking about stuff. And it was before we started doing interviews. We were talking about news and stuff like that. And I was just kind of sat there like, shit, I shouldn't have had them. I thought I'd be okay.
There's times in the past, like before the pandemic, I would go to tours, right? I would, like in Montreal, very lucky, just about every tour stops here. So my friends would be on tour and I'd go out and I'd interview them. I'd always bring them to the same little bar called Saint-Buc. I love that place and can't wait to go back. They're one of the first people that like wrote me and they were like, just come, we'll hook you up with some drinks and just talk about the place. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And I was already going there anyway, so it just sort of worked out. So I would like stack interviews. I'd like do 3, 4 in a row. So the fourth one, I was always a bit more loopy than the first one. So I definitely feel you on that. That we got to be sharp. So
yeah, no, it was one of those episodes. So Brad, like all the way through, was like crucifying me for it. I didn't know they'd still be affecting me. I had him at 11 o'clock like the night before. I was like, I thought I'd be fine, but. Turns out I wasn't. It was literally just before I went to a festival. It was just a test of what they were like, and turns out they were fucking strong.
Oh,
speaking of news, do you think this in the UK there's a fest happening in the summer?
Yes.
Bloodstock.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I do actually think it's going to happen, to be fair, because like the rate of the vaccines is going quite fast in the UK. Like I think our age group, because me and Nathan are both 23 and you're 22, aren't you, Nathan? 23?
Yeah, I'm 22.
Yeah.
I'm 23 this year, but I'm 22.
Yeah. So where our age group, I think, is in May when we're getting vaccines. So if the roadmap that's carried out actually goes ahead, I think Bloodstock will happen. But there has been a few lineup changes, which I was really gutted to see that
I was
Black
going to say,
Dahlia
but who's
Murder.
going to play the show? Yeah.
Yeah, Black Dahlia Murder and Cattle Decapitation pulled out, which I was so gutted about. I've been looking forward to seeing them for ages. There's one more person, one more like member, so it's Devin Townsend, which he's actually from Canada as well. So I really hope that he doesn't get pulled out, but I guess it depends on how Canada's doing, how we're going to be doing, like if we can come, get them to come over. But I'd absolutely love to see Devin. But if not, I think they'll replace him with like a UK headliner, probably someone like Architects or Bring Me the Horizon or something like that, which I'm happy with. But I do want to see Devin.
He's amazing. I've only had the chance to talk to him once. I was playing in this other band for a while called The Catalyst, and we were opening for Devin Towns. This was like with Tesseract, actually. It was in 2012 or something, 2010, at the little campus here in Montreal. And the only moment that I was face to face and we could have actually had an interaction was in this tiny little bathroom. So I hate when people talk to me in the bathroom. So I didn't, and I haven't spoken to him since.
Yeah, I hate bathroom interactions as well.
No, that was weird. And I hate when fans do it. So don't do that to me, please.
Oh, well.
Not you. I'm talking to the world. You can talk to me. I know you now.
No, I've had when people try talking to, I've had like loads of drunk people, like I'll be at the urinal and they'll start talking to me. I'm like, dude, wait until we're like washing our hands.
Especially if it's that like trough one with, like just the big sink there.
Oh yeah, no, I don't mind it as much if there's like the cubicle part, because it's like sort of okay, but when it's just the trough and you're like,
it's weird.
It's just weird.
I think our mate Caleb actually, I can't remember what gig it was. We're in Manchester. It's probably shortly before lockdown happened. It was a gig with Ingested and Vulvodynia, and I can't remember if it was an Ingested member or if it was Vulvodynia, but I know my friend Caleb was in the toilets, like kind of opposite the cubicles, like, it's like, hey man, what's going on? Like, he's like, big fan. I was like, why would you just not wait till we finish?
No,
I love the Ingested boys.
That's Caleb, though.
I love that cup too. We had a good gig there in Manchester, and there's a really cool craft beer bar right around the corner called The Knot.
Ooh.
It was really, really cool. We had a great night there.
When you come back to Leeds again, which I hope you do soon, once the pandemic's over, yeah, we know some good places.
Good. I walked around that day. I must have Googled because I was really heavy into it at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of like, they've only recently opened up though, where it's like kind of like craft beer places that they've just kind of popped up. Like me and Brad decided to have like a bit of a beer crawl before the pandemic and got absolutely shit-faced. put it lightly.
What is cool though is that you guys have the hand-pumped craft beer. See, that hasn't rolled over here yet. The flat, warm, proper ale, but craft. That's not something that's trendy here at all. And I think it's really cool. And I had that's when I interviewed Lynn from Ingested at the Knot, and we were drinking a pale ale, hand pumped. It was really a cool experience.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I think the thing is though, with UK pubs, like they are like so obsessed with having it handcrafted, because a lot of people that come in naturally expect it to be like hand pumped sort of thing, like because everywhere you go, there's always the little pumps in pubs and
proper ale.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I remember first time I tried Hazy Jane on tap, and it was just it was
the carbonation. Oh my god, it has bubbles.
I was literally sat there like, this is so much better than out of the can.
There's like a really nice place called Head of Steam. And they've got like a really big selection of craft beers, but it's nice as well because they let you try a little bit of each one. So I was just like, yeah, can I just like try, 15 of them? So this got like a little got of each.
You're that guy at the ice cream shop. Can I just try the peanut butter cup ice cream, please?
Yeah.
Me and Brad like started that like sort of like little bar crawl, very optimistic, being like, "Oh, we'll only have a couple. We won't get really drunk, you know, like it'll be okay." And then like we were stumbling to the last one, and it got to the point where we were just sat there and we were absolutely just out of our minds, like drunk. Like we were just sat there cuddling each other. Like, I fucking love you. Yeah, I love you too.
I miss those moments. Now it's with a computer screen, and it gets so messy.
What do you think to like Zoom meetups? Do you find that you're getting drunker doing them though? Because I find
drink
I
way
get
faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
I drink way faster. It is, especially not the podcast is more like organized, but Thirsty Thursdays exactly, which I sort of spoke about before, but I'll do a proper introduction now. Is at the beginning of the pandemic, I started inviting my friends to come hang out with me on Zoom. Because it wasn't annoying at that point. and you know, we wanted to see each other and do something. So every Thursday I would invite my friends to come hang out with me, just people that I've toured with, and then actual friends that I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And it was a huge hit the first week, the first 2-3 weeks. It was like 1 year ago now that this happened. And I did like a European one. I did like different time zones so that I could talk to the most amount of people. We were like 30, 40 people on Zoom at drinking and talking and laughing. And then I opened it up to the public, the listeners to the podcast. And that really like blew. We were like 50 people for like, you know, a few months straight. It was crazy. And it just grew into this amazing community that is my Thirsty Thursday gang. In the middle of the summer, I went back to work, and they were like, "You're going back to work? Does that mean that we're not going to do this anymore?" And I felt like this like pang of like sadness that this is something that they needed in their lives. So I just kept doing it, but I started bringing on guest hosts during the summer. I had Riley McShane of Allegiant jump on as my first guest host, and I've had all the members of Cryptopsy. I've done a bunch of other, and then in September, like the world was like opening up much more here in Canada. So I decided to, I would host the first Thursday of each month with a live interview with a past guest of the podcast. And then I would release that episode the week after. But basically, I interview like a past guest that I've already known very well. Like last night, I was with Brittany Slays. I interview them for about 15, 20 minutes while the Thirsty Thursday gang watches. And then I open it up the floor, and the Thirsty Thursday gang asks questions to the guest. And then all of that becomes a new Vox&Hops episode, which comes out the following Thursday. So I just edited and wrapped up everything that happened last night today. It was awesome, super fun. So I love doing this, but they keep hanging out every week without me. This Thirsty Thursday gang, it's like basically going to a local pub. And there's friends from all over the globe. There's people from New Zealand, from the UK, from Germany, from the States, from Canada, from India we've had sometimes, from Mexico. And these people are all like communicating, and they're like commenting on their lives. I normally sign off, because I work on Fridays, I like say goodbye at like 10 o'clock Montreal time. And they have after parties, and they stay awake. I saw pictures of a dude sleeping on his couch this morning that people were capturing because they were up until 4 o'clock in the morning last night. It's crazy. It's like a beautiful, beautiful community. But yes, we do find that we drink a bit more on Zoom things. And why is that? I don't know. I think it's that we're not interacting. We something that is true that we've realized about is that Zoom fatigue is a real thing. So the more that I do these things, I try not to look at myself, because you're basically like talking into a mirror the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exhausting. It's exhausting. And I have a friend, and if she watches this, I apologize. She loves to do these Zoom parties on top of me conducting 3 interviews a week and hosting Thirsty Thursdays. And I can only imagine people that like work in business and they live on Zoom much more than I do. It's exhausting. So I did one with her recently, and I put the computer really far from me. I sat on the couch. I turned off my camera so I couldn't see myself, and I attached it to the TV. And I just sort of just tried to have like as much as a real conversation as we can, but it's exhausting. But I finished Thirsty Thursday, hosting the Thirsty Thursday, because I give the floor to everyone and I moderate, and I'm spent. It's exhausting. 2 hours for some reason. It's killing.
But it's awesome that you've like created this community though, that even like you said, when you're not there, like it still carries on. Like it's like a tradition now for like every Thursday. So I think it's good that
It's amazing. And
people have got
I
something to
know
look forward
that,
to.
and I know that when the world is open, they're going to travel and they're going to be friends. Like there's friends that have ships that have formed. We celebrated one of the members' bachelor parties at a Thirsty Thursday. We rang in 2021 at a Thirsty Thursday. We did a Christmas Eve party. We had a Halloween party. It's crazy. And I know that when I go on tour, I'm going to come through Germany. I'm going to hang out with James. I know that when I go through Boston, I'm going to be with Evan. I know that when I go through Texas, I have like a whole crew of people that I found and that have joined and are helping the podcast from Thirsty Thursdays. It's incredible. I have the Brutal Awakenings playlist that is curated by a member of Thirsty Thursday, this guy named Jerry Monk. I call him the Vox&Hops metal architect. He basically for the past year has just every day been saying, hey, Matt, you might like this, just sending me a band. Mm-hmm. And most of the bands that I listened to in the past year are directly from Jerry Monk. So in late November, I asked him to start being Vox&Hops' metal architect, and he curates the Brutal Awakenings playlist, which every Friday he drops in the coolest, newest tracks for each month, and we do a monthly playlist. And the playlists, like if you look at like December, January, they're days long. It's
yeah,
and they're all full of bangers. It's insane. I don't know how he listens to so much music, but he does. And now I've also like expanded the Vox&Hops crew, and I've in the Thirsty Thursday community. A lot of publicists hit me up about doing like music reviews. I personally don't have the time to do this, so I've encouraged some of the members of the Thirsty Thursday gang to either do video reviews or written reviews of albums that we love, and then that's going to be published on Vox&Hops. So the Thirsty Thursday gang is something integral to Vox&Hops at this point. And it's, I could have like been like this marketing guru guy and gone to see some paid big money to some marketing firm, just like create me a community. And they would have never made what Thirsty Thursday is. So it's organic, it's true. We are like a family. And it's amazing. And just last week, I released an episode about Thirsty Thursday for the 1-year anniversary, where I asked them to send me audio clips of themselves talking, answering questions such as like, what does Thirsty Thursday mean to you? What have you gained from Thirsty Thursday? Stuff like that. And I released that episode last week, and I put it together, and me and Jess were listening to it. We were like, it was so emotional. It was like the day after a wedding, reading like all the cards. It was amazing. It's beautiful, and people all over the globe participated. It was so cool. I know Thirsty Thursday is going to continue in one way or another, even if the world is open and everything. It might become something less frequent, but I know that people are going to come to Montreal. I'm going to go hang out with them, and actually, they're my friends. It's really cool.
Yeah. Did you ever think, like, when you started the podcast, it get to this stage, right, where you've got an entire community of people that, join in every Thursday? You've got like thousands of listeners and a lot of people that, in like a weird way, like sort of know you from just listening to you almost every day. Like, did you ever think it'd get to that point, or was it kind of like it just happened? Like,
it just happened. It was important. I wanted to start a podcast because it happened naturally. I was at home with my daughter. In Canada, like you guys in the UK, it gets dark really, really early in the winters. So we don't watch TV with our kids. We try not to watch TV with our kids to this day. So the days got really long. When Jess was working back at work, she'd come home late, and we'd wait for her for supper and get the whole bedtime train rolling. Yeah. So I started listening to podcasts to like because I'd listened to everything. I listened to every CD that was out, in my mind. So I started listening to podcasts, and I was like, this is really interesting. And I went to dinner with Jess. It was actually right around this time because it's Jess's birthday coming up. And we went out to her birthday dinner, and I was saying, the way that I shoot ideas and Jessica aligns them into something that makes sense. That night, the name Vox&Hops was created. So it's I never intended it to become something huge. I just wanted it to be something to keep me occupied, because I saw what was coming in the world of Cryptopsy. And in the world of Cryptopsy at that time in 2019, I knew that Flo had joined Ultimass with David Vincent from Morbid Angel,
Yep.
and Rune Eriksson from Mayhem. And I knew that Ollie was joining Cattle Decapitation. I knew that Chris had his studio, so he's completely fine and settled. But I had this like, what the hell am I gonna do? Feeling. So this like fear of being left out, of being jealous of them. I didn't like that. So I created Vox&Hops, and originally that night we were tinkering with the name Vox and Locks because I got long hair, you know.
Yeah, Vox&Hops is better.
And then recently we switched it to the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast, and that's because we've like been digging more into the science behind what is a podcast. Jessica's been doing a lot of research on who listens to the podcasts, and as much as I am deeply in the world of craft beer, my primary listeners are metalheads. So I wanted to really focus in on that and focus on the fact that this is a metal podcast. I have talks with metal individuals while sharing a craft beer. And I'm not trying to alienate the craft beer industry, but I primarily just want to speak to metalheads. I think that that's something that I've really, as the podcast has gone, I've experimented with talking with a bunch of people, but I'm much more comfortable, and I think that my listeners are much more eager to listen to conversations with metalheads. So that's why I've switched to the Vox&Hops Metal Podcast.
Well, it's very smart because, like, you speak to metal musicians, like the majority of your listeners are going to be metalheads, but the fact that you've incorporated the craft beer into it is very unique because there's not anybody else doing that. Like, there's obviously loads of metal podcasts, but someone that obviously integrates the craft beer, like you speak to breweries, you speak to metal musicians, like there's a lot of variety in there, but you appealing to technically two fan bases at the same time, even if the majority are metal musicians and metalheads. So yeah, that's impressive.
I'm expanding to athletes next. That's what I'm hunting for. I want to talk to metal athletes, but metal always has to be there. There always has to be that component that and metal is so vast, so
yeah.
A lot of people will be like, I'm not a metalhead. You're the singer of Cryptopsy. You're too much for me, but I like Metallica, but that's metal, so
yeah.
I can judge them afterwards, but I grew up on Metallica. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
do you like I listen to System of a Down. I'm like, that rules,
So obviously, we know that you love craft beer, we know that you love metal. Is there any hobbies and interests that you have that people might not know about you? Like, obviously you're quite busy. I imagine it's hard to schedule in some sort of hobbies and interests, but what would you do if you weren't involved in that stuff?
You know what I really miss doing? Nothing. I miss just lying on my couch and having a whole day watching Netflix, or now I guess I'm on Crave, but whatever, HBO. I want to just do a day like that. I need one of those days. I miss a babysitter. That's what I miss.
See, I was on furlough for months. So for months, my entire life was that. I was there fuck, I just wish I had something to do. And then shit happened, and I was like, I wish I could just go back on furlough.
But that's touring too. It's like, I want to be on tour, and then you're on tour and you're like, I want to be home.
Well, you know what's mad? Ever since I started my band in 2019, towards the back end of it, we've not played a single gig because the minute we got it ready to play a gig, Corona hit, and then we were like, fuck. So I've never played any gig or anything like that. It's my first proper band that actually did well. We actually stuck it. I was in other ones, but it just fell flat. Everyone left, and I remember being sat there being like, I haven't played a fucking single gig because this fucking virus fucking show up. You know what I mean?
You will. Be patient and it'll be good.
I am genuinely praying that the roadmap actually does play out the way that they have said, because I'm like, hey, as soon as you get to the end of May, I can now start playing gigs.
In Temple of Boom, it's waiting for you.
Oh yeah.
Well, fun fact. My first. The first track from my band was mixed by the sound guy at Temple Boom.
Really? Yeah. I remember there's it's like a cage. The sound room. Yeah. My Mega, the Majorcan King I was talking about before, he was there with us that night. And we were laughing about him being in a cage. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that was a good show though. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, no,
it was hot. It was fun. It was hot. It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Temple Boom's easily one of my favorite venues in Leeds. Easily.
It's got a vibe to it.
Yeah, it's got like that old sort of like independent punk sort of like vibe. It's like, this was all just set up by a couple of guys that just wanted to put on some shows, and you can really feel it right around the entire area. It was all like, you know, like DIY sort of punk sort of like scene originally, and then catered to metal later on.
They were super nice to it.
Oh yeah, they're great. Everyone that works there are great guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think we're getting to like sort of the end points of the interview now. One thing that we always sort of like ask everyone that sort of comes on is what they'd advise someone to do that, you know, are just starting out in either music or, you know, like
this
yourself.
is, I'm sorry, this is how fresh this beer was. There was a chunk of hops in it.
Oh wow. I don't think I've ever seen that in a bit.
No, me neither. I want to take a picture and send it to Derek.
That's how you know it's authentic.
Sorry, we gotta keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, one thing we always ask is what advice would you give to your younger self or someone that's starting out, sort of like just starting a podcast or just starting a band? What would you kind of say to them, like going, these are the do's and the don'ts, and just try this?
I would, you know, be patient, be consistent, put the work in, because no one's going to do it for you. Grow a tough skin. Be positive. Spread positivity, and choose the right people to be around. Those would be key words right there, because I was lucky to be, you know, Mike Marino, the 3 Mile Scream leader, was an excellent person to have. He sort of like totally built me up in the early days of Montreal metal. Me growing up, I had no idea what to do. He really educated me very well, and then, you know, Flo and the Cryptopsy boys really helped that. Having Jessica being the whole behind that, you know, not just the metal Matt, the human Matt, was super important. So yeah, you know, patience, consistency, especially the podcast, consistency, quality, being, you know, solid, following through, not being sketchy. and being a good human, spreading positivity. That would be my absolute advice for everyone. Put the work in. Yeah,
definitely.
No, thank you so much. Like, this has been an absolute dream for us to have you on. Obviously, like we said, you inspired us massively to start the podcast. We probably watched more Vox and Hops than we've had hot dinners. So, you know, we'll continue to support you. Can't wait to see Cryptopsy again when they return to the UK. We will be there. Thank you so much for having a chat with us. It's been awesome.
Well, thank you guys. I am stoked. I'm stoked, and I can't wait to come hang out with you guys and go on that pub crawl. I'll wake up extra early, crawl out of my bunk just for you guys, and you guys can show me where to go drink some craft beer.
Yeah, we'll show you the best places.
Hopefully, you know, this time next year we'll be able to do this interview in person.
Yeah, I would hope so.
That'd be super awesome. Yeah, we know the best places.
Yeah,
awesome. Cheers, boys.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Take care.